Hello, beautiful beings of light. Thank you for being here. Thanks for tuning in. I want to share with you some information that is hopefully very helpful and inspiring to you as it has been to me. And it's very pertinent, I feel, in these times because I think many of us are feeling it. This May energy is truly so unique and it's pretty intense. What else to say than that? I know a lot of people who are feeling it. So if you're feeling it, no, you're not alone. And I think that this is part of just being upgraded, and really having to follow our intuition, follow our inner guidance, listen to our bodies, listen to our inner knowing, our inner awareness, keep being sovereign, keep being present, using all of the things that we've been learning and practicing, especially recently. But that said, this isn't so much an energy update because, that'd be a whole other thing. But hopefully this information is relevant to you now or whenever you're watching this. So I really want to talk about time and timelines, realities, dimensions, again, just words. I've talked about before how everything that you could possibly imagine is happening in the now moment. We're coming into multi-dimensionality. In this third dimension, we have linearity. And I've been really learning a lot and experimenting a lot with this multidimensionality and working outside of time. And I find it is extremely fun. It's extremely potent and natural. I think this is something that you don't have to try for. I think it's something we're naturally going into as we're activating. And, there's all kinds of stuff going on with Earth right now, and we're all feeling it. So that's another thing you can really connect with Earth, connect with Gaia, connect with her spirit, and she will really, really help you. It's very available right now. And I also want to preface this with saying, in a lot of my videos and a lot of my work in general for years, I've always been having this intention for myself and for others of really being positive, really healing, really soothing the human, really trying to encourage, the human and all of us, all of our beings. And I just want to be clear, and this has been very, very clear to me recently, more than ever, is like, the reason, I'm called to do that isn't because I'm wanting you to be passive. It's not because I'm asking you to just, positive think everything away per se. It's really more about helping humanity more to get into a higher elevated consciousness in which we can act with way more potency. In other words, when you come from a place of elevated consciousness, when you come from a place of true strength, because everything is energy, every single thing is energy. One of the main traps that we've been in is fear consciousness. Fear is a consciousness, and I've talked about this before. It's a very tricky one, and you can get out of fear. It's an illusion in a way, but when you're in it, it feels very real. It appears very real, and it can be really daunting. It can be really, our minds tend to go to the extreme of worst case scenarios or these kinds of things when we're dealing with fear, and we feed into that drama. We feed into that consciousness, even if it's, unintentionally, even if we're kind of going asleep at the wheel and we start feeding into that fear consciousness. From my experience, you lose a lot of your power. You give a lot of your power away that way. And the fear will convince you, because the ego loves fear, and the fear will convince you that you're doing the right thing, or that you should be afraid, or that you should be living in fear. And it's, of course, there's a difference between being prepared in the third dimension, And that's really what I'm trying to get into. There's different energetics there. There's different energetics in being prepared and being courageous and being strong. And there's nothing wrong with being in fear. There's nothing wrong with feeling fear. It's not something to beat yourself up about. It's just something to be aware of, because once you feel it, you can transmute it and you can step out of it. And that's again when you have more power to act. And the more you're in these elevated states of consciousness, again, from courage, love, hope, faith, knowingness, health, vitality, compassion, like I could go on and on. There's many, many different spectrums, but above all, just the knowingness and your power and your creatorship, and not giving it away to fear. Because is that not the biggest thing, at least one of the biggest things we're dealing with as a collective here, is the fear. I mean, if you look around, that's all that you can see is the fear. And the fear is not only perpetuating, these disempowering things we are seeing in the world, and these terrible and evil things we are seeing in the world, it's responsible for it. It's that fear. It always can be traced back to this fear consciousness. So from my understanding and from my experience, it's like you got to really get yourself out of fear and get yourself into these elevated consciousnesses to have the most potency in your being. Because then when you act, you're fully aware. You really have so many more tools available to you to really make an impact, a positive impact. And this is true individually and collectively. All of this, you can really see the collective and its awakening process the same way that you saw your own individual awakening process, because again, it's a fractal. It's like when you're coming to wake up, whether it's about the things in the world or something in yourself. We've all had these things in our lives where we didn't want to face something, and eventually we faced it. But in those times when you don't want to face it, it's like there's this separation. There's this separation of the self. So it's really amazing how you can see these patterns and these fractals of not wanting to look at something that's maybe uncomfortable. But oftentimes if it's something's presenting itself to you and you're not wanting to face it, you're not wanting to look at it, we tend to actually make ourselves suffer more from that anxiety and that that deep down kind of separation from we know but we don't want to know. A lot of times we cause a lot more suffering than if we would just face it head on and just feel it and just transmute it. So that's kind of a long introduction to this, and I'm gonna make a lot of videos about this because I could talk a lot about this, and I'm still learning a lot and receiving a lot of information about it. So hopefully it resonates. But that's really important, I feel like, because I think it's all too easy for some people to think that doing things energetically versus trying to just do everything physically is almost a way of being passive or tapping out, but it's really not. It's really not. It's more about being multidimensional and realizing where it's all coming from in the first place. We have abilities now that we've never had before, and we're literally stepping into this more and more every single day. It's truly incredible. It blows my mind how we are activating, and it's just so natural, and we're truly stepping into this multi-dimensionality. And that's really what I want to get into, because we have power that we may have not had before. In fact, I know we do. Even if it's things you've known or you've done for a while, it's like this energy, and I say it again and again, but I notice it again and again and again. The energy is changing so much. So even if you were spiritual like 10 years ago, things are very different now. Like, you have so much more power, in your favor. And the biggest thing, because I do want to talk about, again, this idea of timelines and dimensions and realities and all that, it all goes hand in hand, I feel. Again, from my understanding, there was a time not that long ago when how to say this. We all, like, as human beings, were very much unconscious, way more unconscious than we are now, to where, for example, you could go see a psychic and they could predict your life very accurately. Whereas now they can't really do that. That's just something I've noticed. A lot of people have noticed that, And it's not that these psychics are fraud per se. It's that the energy is changing. People aren't so locked in the same timeline. Everything is shifting. People are shifting way more fast. They have way more freedom. They have way more unpredictability. And that's just one example. But what I'm really trying to say is, we are not so unconscious. We are not so locked into our environmental destiny anymore. It's like we actually have freedom in our destiny now, every single one of us. And it's a fractal. Like, you have so much freedom in your individual life. And that's what I've been really talking about. But I feel like that's building up to understand that as a collective consciousness, the more we come into unity, true unity, not the inverted unity that, they preach in the Matrix or the loop or whatever you want to call it. But we really are, humanity is all connected. So this is kind of getting to the, when you can really master creation and multidimensionality to a certain degree in your life, and that's kind of what I want to get into today, you can really begin to help the collective. And I really feel like that's a big part for me and many of us. We didn't just come here for ourselves. We came here to help humanity. We came here to help shift the collective consciousness. And you can just feel it. You can just feel it, And we're coming out of this amnesia and remembering, like, wow, we can really do this, And I'm jumping all over the place, but this is all connected. And again, this is all to really say that we have this creative power that we didn't have years ago, that we didn't even have months ago. Every moment we're shifting so fast now, and it's going to continue to accelerate because linear time is speeding up. Linear time is, of course, an illusion. Time and space are concepts of the third dimension. And it's really amazing to really contemplate on this information, because I think a lot of us know this deep down, but now we're stepping into multidimensionality, and we're going to actually learn a lot more. What does that really mean? Time doesn't exist, okay, but what does that really mean? Time still exists in this third dimension, but when you tap into 5D consciousness, and these are just words, but you tap into your higher self in the present moment, and you get clear, and you silence the mind, you can literally access past, present, future. You can access any reality, any dimension. Who's to say that's not real? Does it have to be physical to be real? In fact, I think the physical world is, if anything, less real, depending on your definition of real. Physicality is reflecting consciousness. But in your now moment, you can go to the past, you can go to memories you've had, you can go to the future, you can go to the timelines that you want to live in the future. How quick your mind can go to these future timelines that maybe you don't even want, And you can go even beyond that. You can literally go into all kinds of different realities and dimensions where you're talking to other beings, or maybe dragons exist, or maybe you're just in a green field, or you're just in a white void. It's like you have your imagination to take you to everything you could possibly imagine and think of exists. That's so awesome and empowering to me. And I feel like I've known that for a while, but to really experience it now, and again, this is something to experiment with yourself. It's not something to just even read about or hear about. I can't tell you anything that, you don't already know, or that you can't experiment with yourself and have your own, divine, unique perception of. But this is really powerful information once you start thinking about time and beyond time and working outside of time. We really have so much more creative abilities. So that's another point I want to make in this as well, talking about time. Because there's so many things you can do. There's so many interesting things I'm learning you can do when it comes to healing yourself and empowering yourself. And again, and I really want to get to this even in this video, of beginning to empower humanity and help humanity through our elevated consciousness, our observation, our intentions. We've been so lost in this unconsciousness of like thinking we are victims to the environment, and we have been. We've lived that out, but we don't have to live that out anymore. Again, individually and collectively. I truly believe this is part of evolution, and we are the pioneers. Not everyone's going to get this, but the ones who do are truly going to be the visionaries and the pioneers. Literally visionaries, because you're envisioning, and it's something, for your individual life, you can do it for your life and even for humanity to some degree. But from my understanding, for the collective, to truly shift the collective consciousness, this is something that we're going to have to really unify for, the ones who are at least ready and resonate with this, even just on energetic level, beginning to truly anchor into these higher timelines. Not that we're not already on that, but that's how we really bring it into our reality, if that makes sense. Really being able to start envisioning the timelines you want to experience for humanity, the timelines of love, of awakening, of harmony, of disclosure, of people being ready, of people waking up, and all these types of things. See, we've been in this loop, from, again, my perspective, such a loop, and it's like part of the evolution as well. We're learning of being still stuck into a lot of the external illusions. And that's what they want. The external world, its whole thing is trying to suck you back into it. That's its whole role in a way, especially when it comes to the fear consciousness. So it's like a mixture of that and us not believing in ourselves and identifying with the past. And that's a whole other point as well, is identifying with the past. Again, we have new abilities now, in this present moment right now, that we didn't have years ago, that we didn't have months ago, that we didn't have weeks ago, hours ago. We're literally shifting. And the more you can believe that and tell yourself that and own that you're literally getting better and stronger and wiser every single day, every single moment, the more it will be true, because we live in a reality based on your beliefs. And again, that's what we're doing here. We're really having to reprogram the mind, having to reprogram a lot of these beliefs. That's a big one. That was a really helpful revelation for me recently, was how much I had still unconsciously been identifying with my past self, past timelines, past versions of myself that I am no longer, And you can play around with that a lot. You can go back in time in those memories and send love to that version of yourself, send healing to that version of yourself. You may not be able to change the solid physical happening, but you can rewrite the script of how you interpreted that, if that makes sense. You can be like a spirit guide for yourself in the past. And it's really trippy if you think about this, because then you go back in the past and you can kind of remember there's usually a little voice. There's a little voice that says like, hey, maybe you shouldn't do that, or hey, it's okay, or hey, you're going to be fine. It's really amazing how you can play with time like that. And that's kind of a side note, but that's a really fun one, because when you do that, you can heal yourself now just from meditating for 5, 10, 15 minutes on a memory that maybe hurt you in the past. Again, you might not be able to change what physically happened, but you can change the energy and the information around it, even in that version of yourself, because that too exists in the present moment, in the quantum field, in 5D, or whatever you want to call it, the 0-point field. In the same way, that's part of tapping into your inner guidance system as well, as you can begin to really hear those messages from your intuition. You can almost call that your future self. So it's kind of trippy, and it makes me so excited, I think, to start playing with time like this and really be able to feel it. And again, just play with it in your individual life, and as well beginning to envision these things for all of humanity, Again, it's really important that we are healthy and strong and thriving in ourselves. I truly believe that. Because, of course, that's when you're most able to help others, is when you're abundant, when you feel safe, when you feel grateful, when you feel happy, when you feel, aligned, successful, all these types of things. That's when you can really get creative and start to help others more and more. And again, if you're like me, you feel like that's the main reason of why you're really here. You know, I felt that since I was a child, and I've had to come back and heal myself for a long time, you know, and now it's feeling like more and more like I'm able to help others. So I know this is all over the place. I hope it makes sense, just talking about time. I guess it's relevant then that it's not so linear. But it's really amazing to start thinking about that all these different. So I guess the last thing I'll say on this note, and I'm going to talk about this a lot in the future, and it'll be hopefully more organized, but this is all just flowing out. That's normally how I like to roll, to see what you know. I'm sure there's someone who needs this information right now. When you're creating your own reality, when you're trying to manifest something, whatever it may be, money, a partner, a job, a skill, an off-grid homestead. I think we all want that. Whatever it may be. If you ever work with the law of attraction, you know that one of its principles is to feel it before it manifests physically. And that's really how you bring it towards you. And I've talked about this before in many of my videos, creating in the quantum field from the inside out, using your mind and heart and your energy to literally bring it towards you. And that's really how we create as creator beings. We don't have to struggle in the physical world. It's about alignment. But just relevant to this, the biggest thing here is, so say you want to create an off-grid homestead, because again, I think many of us want that. Pretty much all of us want that, one degree or another. It just sounds amazing to be that free. And that's really what that, when you want to create something, whatever it is, it's not just about the physical manifestation. You know, maybe an even easier example is like money or a relationship or whatever it is. It's not about just the physical manifestation. I mean, yes, of course, in this physical world, we want that, and that's great, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what it's really about is the energy behind it, the state that we perceive ourselves to be in if we had that. The love we would feel if we had that relationship. The safety and freedom we would feel if we had that extra money. You know, the power we would have if we had that off-grid homestead, the freedom we would have, the real security we would have, you know, the sovereignty we would have. That's already exists. So this is the thing about everything exists now in the present moment. It's something really worth it to really ponder upon and think about. If you really envision that timeline, when you tune into that, you're tuning into that timeline, because everything that could ever possibly be, from the most likely thing to the most unlikely thing, exists now. When you're able to really tap into your higher awareness, everything, you know, you have a steering wheel that's pretty much your resonance, your belief systems, your thoughts, your emotions, maybe other contracts you've made energetically. That's really what's guiding you. But in the quantum field, there's everything that you could possibly imagine. And the more you step into being a creator, the more you have mastery over what you experience. And this is what we're doing now. It's not happening naturally. We're no longer victims of the matrix environment. That's one of the biggest shifts that we're going to have to probably remind ourselves again and again and again. And I know it can be challenging because it's so deep rooted, and that's why we're having to like reprogram so repetitively again and again and again, because that's how you program the mind. That's how you reprogram the mind. We've been, again, so unconscious, so on autopilot, so just totally, I don't know what the word is, just for lack of better words, victims of our environment unconsciously. Whereas now we're stepping into creatorhood, and we're still in that environment. We're still in a crazy dualistic contrast-full environment, but we are creator beings now, and we have choice now, and we are mastering how we use that choice through our vibrational systems. So I got off on a little tangent there, but my main point was, when you're trying to manifest something, it's about the state, it's about the energy, it's about the feeling, it's about the knowingness that, and that's the main part of, again, of law of attraction. That's what you really want. It's not just about the physical manifestation, it's about that feeling. So you can cultivate that feeling now, in your now. That's one of the most worthwhile things you can do. And as you hold that vision and you feel that, and you trust that this is how it works, you trust that you're a powerful creator being that is a creator of worlds, and you kind of let go and you just flow, and you follow your inspired action, you know that that's going to manifest physically. My point is here that, in a way, you can access any timeline, past, present, or future. And again, this is linear time. Linear time isn't going to exist when it no longer serves you, if that makes sense. But that's kind of another topic for another day. But any timeline, any reality you can think of that is calling to you, any dimension, any whatever, you can travel there and extract information from there, whatever you may need. Maybe you're healing something in your past. Maybe you're aligning with something in your future. Maybe you're in another version of yourself. Maybe you're in a parallel reality. Maybe, you can literally do anything. It's so empowering. You can do anything in your energetic field. That's like a whole other layer of who you are that we're accessing more than ever right now. There's ancient knowledge on the planet that hasn't been available in so long that it's just like little gold nuggets everywhere now. And even if those realms you visit and you extract information from aren't physical, it doesn't mean that you can't gain amazing experiences from there that you can then go to use in your physical life. There's so many aspects of our reality that's just nothing like we were programmed to believe. And it's not something that we were ever taught. It's something we're all learning hands-on. And even this, if you resonate with it, that's awesome. If not, that's awesome. It's fine. We're literally in the field of infinite possibilities. We're all going to experience this differently. I'm not saying there's not universal truths and there's not certain laws in place. But almost most things are very fluid. That's another thing we're going to come to find. Most things are very fluid. Even information itself is very fluid in this realm. It's always changing. It's always moving. I think that's another feature of this evolution process. It's not so solid. It's not so black and white. It's not so rigid and absolute. I truly believe that we were designed to be able to stand in these fields of infinite possibility and walk around with other beings in their fields of infinite possibilities and be strong and be sovereign, and let others be strong and be sovereign, as long as it's not hurting anyone. Because that's another thing, is there's still so much division, and if things are going to start heating up in the Matrix, which, again, I can't predict the future, but it feels like that could be a thing with all these activations, things start heating up in the future. Can we learn to stand together? You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about that false unity that they preach. It's not about conformity at all. It's not about, shrinking yourself down so someone else feels better. It's not about that at all. It's about us being our greatest, strongest selves and being able to unify in that. So again, understand, beautiful beings, especially if you're watching this, we are pioneers. We are literally pioneers. We are visionaries. All of us came here to do something that's probably never been done before. So that's another thing. Don't compare yourself to other people, other beings. We all have a unique blueprint, a unique calling. Even comparing yourself to past versions of yourself. Oh, I've always struggled with this. I've always had this problem. I've never been able to do this. Every time I try to change, it fails. Those are old narratives. Those are old storylines. The more you become multidimensional, the more you realize how amazing it is to just let go of all of that linearity, all of that continuity, all of that, those anchors into the past. Because the past can be kind of like the ego in the way that it can anchor you and attach you to these storylines and these narratives that maybe no longer serve you. You can let them go. You are a completely new, free, open being now in this present moment. Every single moment, every single time you choose. I think that information is so empowering and so beautiful. Truly. So, thank you so much for listening. I hope this is helpful. There's so much to be said on this topic because it really is so exciting as we are activating into this multidimensionality. I have some really interesting events coming up in the future that I will link below on May 20th, and I'll link all this information below. I'm having a workshop on creation with the Ascending Tribe, which is a really amazing channel that you should totally check out. It's just such a gem. I'm talking about creation and giving presentation and also doing a Q&A section. So if you're interested in attending that, it's free. Feel free to join or watch afterwards. Other than that, thank you for listening. I know this was a little longer than I wanted it to be, but I hope it was helpful. I hope it served you. I hope it inspires you. And please feel free to share anything that you thought, that anything that you feel, anything that you're going through, any dreams you're having, because May truly has been such a unique month. I mean, this has just been truly a crazy time. So I love you. Thank you. Have a blessed day.